In this issue, Dave Randel shares some insights from his system and talks about reality-based techniques and whole body control stemming from the teachings of John Perkins. Neil Ripski from Red Jade Martial Arts talks about and demonstrates staying in place and staying in space. Sean Kovarovic demonstrates Tai Chi basics and gives a short demo of the 8 energies. Then Steve Carrier shares a word about how martial arts helped his life.
Welcome to Texas. It's pretty cold out today. There's no leaves on the trees. I'm freezing. We got 10 minutes, so I'm going to be pretty fast. There'll be some titling that comes by on the screen that tells you some of my background. I'm sort of the un-Tai Chi guy. I never learned form. I learned through principles. And the 4 principles that I learned through was balance, looseness, sensitivity, and power. And you're going to see more about that as we go along. So I'm thankful to be included in this magazine, this video magazine. Appreciate all of that. I hope to meet many of you at some point. First subject they wanted to know about was philosophy. You're going to get some more titling there so that you can see this thing. I'm running out of time. Our philosophy is reality. We want to look for what's immediately effective, be able to hit into vital parts of the body if we need to, and we use the Tai Chi just because this very nasty type of striking, if it's met from another person, you're going to need other tools in your box to be able to deal with that as well. So we're going to use some sensitivity and some softness and be changeable. You'll see more about that. Anyway, so what is it about? Is it form or formless? So we want to be able to move to anywhere, from anywhere, at any time. And one way to deal with that is to just get control of your body, right? So we can do walking exercises. One might be this sort of a linear walk. You can take a look at these things in the Attack Proof book. It's John Perkins' book. But there's a thing that he does called the ninja walk, which is something like this. Basically, it's a full weight transfer to the front leg and coming straight off the ground. And being able to tap the ground so we can feel where it is, bringing the leg forward and tapping the ground so we can feel where it is, and placing the foot, but not using it, and then making a full weight transfer. Now this doesn't have to just go forward, this can go in any direction. So we lift straight up, and I lose my balance, and pick up, and place, and then do a full weight transfer. And then pick up, and find a new spot, which might be there, and do a full weight transfer. And that's one way of practicing our formless form. We're trying to have this connection to the ground, okay? Here's another one that's also from the same background, my background, and from the same book, the idea of polishing the sphere. So we're on the inside of a circular sphere, and we want to touch that sphere with any part of our body. Again, we're just trying to get control of our equilibrium. So I can use my butt to reach the bottom, and my head to reach the top, and my chest to reach the middle. And I just want to get my feet and my hands moving with balance and be able to articulate my body in any way I have to. So that's another exercise. So these are ways of getting control of your equilibrium and your body. And now we're going to take it into application. Right? So again, there's going to be some titling up on the screen. We're going to do the application part. For the first part, I want to show you this demo that I call the shadow exercise. So can I use Sean, please? Sean's our training partner down here in Texas, in San Antonio. Would you please stand on one foot? pressure into my hand. Now, if there was a light coming from there, you would see a shadow, and the shadow would look one way, but the pressure right now is down. If I turn my hand, now his pressure is toward the camera, but the shadow is still the same. If I turn my hand, the pressure is up, but again, the shadow is still the same. And this is a matter of having internal connection. It doesn't necessarily have to be a change of shape of the body. Thank you. Let's stop for there, right? For the second part of application, I want to show you some random attack ideas. The idea is to be able to shed energy coming at you and be able to return fire if you need to. Can you please come out? So I'm just going to go for a spin, and Sean's going to do something, and I don't know what he's going to do, right? And that's it. If you push a little harder or stronger a different way or hit a different way. Closing my eyes. Oh, there it is. So I close my eyes and I spin. Oh, I didn't even open my eyes. But look what happened. I shed that energy and this came out, right? This same thing can be done with a pad. It's the same idea. Bang it into me at some point, right? So, and I want to drop down, right? Again. So if I get hit, I want to just return fire if I see that, okay? Last part is going to be how we take our push hands into Dashao, right? That's how I understand to say it. And I'm going to take a slightly closer look here. You know what push hands is. We're going to do a little push hands. So Sean and I are trying to off-balance each other. You can push me, and I roll back, and him. And this is fine, we understand this. This is a long connection, okay, easy. It's a long connection, looking with that internal force and shape change, right? But what I want you to try is I want you to also try disconnecting where your primary tools are. So we're pushing hands, and you see how I slip to my elbow? That's so that I can hit him in the head, right? And we keep going. Oh, there's an elbow. All right, well, what might happen here? Let's continue. Oh, there's a chop to the throat, right? So we don't have to hurt each other, but we can move easy, and his strikes will come out too. There's a shot, right? And we want to feel this. So this can be pushing and plucking and hitting, right? Anyway, thank you. Start hitting each other. Be nice though, right? It can get a little more spicy, just so you can see. One more time. Just a tiny bit more, because he hurt his finger. Beat me up. So, beat me up. Anyway, being nice because of his finger, but this can go faster. It's hard to not be so nice. Okay? But we're nice to each other. Peace. Welcome to Texas. It's pretty cold out today. There's no
So, in internal martial arts, Tai Chi specifically, I think one of the most difficult parts about learning, especially as a beginner, is understanding that there's a ton of optical illusions. So what you think you see happening isn't necessarily what's happening when you watch your teacher or your master. And that's the problem, right? Because we learn by mimicking. This is what we do. So when we see somebody doing a movement and, we think, oh, they're lifting their arms, they're moving one way to the other, blah, blah, blah. We just try to copy it. And that's why when you watch a beginner movement, it looks similar to the teacher. And even if you can't really tell them apart exactly why they're different, you can tell that there is seriously a difference. Somebody has way more skill than the other. But it's hard to put your finger on it. Staying in place and staying in space. And those are two different things. So staying in place means taking a set of joints, so like say my arm, if I bend my arm like the beginning of the Chen form, if I place my arm into the right shape and I want it to stay in place, that means that I'm going to take these joints and I'm not going to move them, okay? So when my torso turns, nothing happens to my arm. My torso moves, my arm doesn't. So this is not what would be called making a move, right? I'm not moving my arm, I'm moving my torso. So my hand, my arm, all of these joints are staying in place. Now, staying in space means putting a part of your body somewhere in space and moving everything but that. Okay, it's never allowed to leave that space. So again, I'll use the first move in the Chen form. So when I get to here, this first position, my left arm, which is out in front of me, ends up occupying a certain space, okay, in the air. And no matter what I do, which is my next movement, it will rotate, which is always a legal movement, if you will, because axillary force is incredibly hard to stop, okay, as opposed to leverage type force, where I'm moving my arm. But when I do my first movement, it stays in space. So it just rotates and stays right where it is when I put it there. So the very first opening movement of the Chen set has both in it, right? So once I get to here, what ends up happening is my right arm stays in place, my left arm stays in space, and that gives me the illusion of moving. Because you see a lot of people that don't see this, right? And it's nobody's fault. It's just literal ignorance. It's really hard to see what's going on. And they'll do things like push their arm forward or push their arms to the side. So there's the appearance of this being the same move, but it's really an optical illusion because really nothing moves. The arms do not make the moves. So I'm just going to continue into the Chen a little bit to demonstrate this again, and then we'll do some Yang. So as I turn, I get to my second movement, I have to take my step, right? So my arms both end up staying in place, meaning no movement at all, and I just move my weight over. Take my step and settle. Now, when I turn Dantian back to the front towards the camera, you can see that my left arm stays in space. So it doesn't move, it just simply rotates in place, right where it is, okay, right in space there. Now, why is this important? Well, think about it like a lever. When you have a lever of any kind, you have to have a fulcrum, right? So if I grab something handy here, if this is my lever that I'm going to use to do some kind of work, I have to have a fulcrum in the center of it, or near one end, in order to apply the force from one end to another. The fulcrum of the lever can't move, okay? So if I'm trying to lift something heavy down here by cranking on it at the end of the lever, if my fulcrum's moving, and I mean three-dimensionally moving, not just back and forth, left and right, but it can be moving up and down like it was like sitting on ice or floating on water, my lever's not going to work, right? Because as soon as I apply force to some kind of an object, it's going to push the fulcrum out of the way, and no work will get done. So in Tai Chi, when it comes to how to do push hands, how to use Tai Chi combatively, we have to look at the body as a series of levers, which means we have to find the fulcrums for those levers. So when a joint is moving, there's always at least one other joint that's not moving to act as the fulcrum for the lever. And this is why staying in space and staying in place becomes really important. Because if I don't have this understanding that every joint has its role, be it moving or non-moving, then what happens is people don't do a lot of the movements with their torso, and they just kind of move their arms around, okay? And you can make really pretty Tai Chi like that, but pretty ain't good. And that's what skill is, especially in internal martial arts, using the body in the most efficient way possible. So if I go to Yang style, one of the most popular moves people learn at the beginning of Yang style is wild horse shakes its mane. Parting the horse's mane, people call it, right? So when I've got my Tai Chi ball, if you will, I take my step, I bring my weight across the hip track in between my heels, and now I'm going to just turn Dantian, turn my torso in order to make the shape of wild horse. But the optical illusion most people see is that the arm, in this case my left arm, pushes outwards. But it's really not doing anything. I'm not moving my arm at all. What I'm doing is I'm letting it rotate. So if I just leave it on the bottom of the ball and I don't rotate my arm, what will happen is that it will just carry my arm across over my left leg. So this is staying in place. These three joints are doing nothing, okay? And that gives me a lot of structure, because I've got a decent structure from practicing, that I can now move towards an opponent, right? In order to be able to touch them without having everything wobble around. Now the rotation, that's cool, because the rotation, it allows me, as I bring my my hand palm up, it allows me to have a sort of rising feeling to it. But it's not actually rising. I'm not picking my arm up. If you look at the level really doesn't change, but the appearance changes. And that's the illusion, right? I'm actually staying basically right where I am, but by turning my palm over, it appears that I've lifted it. And that's the thing. The more wobbling, right, the less fixed joints, the less structure you actually have. You can really see it later on in the yang long form when you see diagonal flying, okay, where one hand will stay in space and the entire body will move away from it. Okay, and this is another good example because you can see very little is actually happening. But unfortunately, a lot of the time when you're doing Tai Chi as a beginner, you end up, far away from the teacher perhaps. Maybe the teacher's wearing his kung fu clothes and they're big and long and flowing, or he's got a jacket on because you're outside. It's really hard to see what all the joints are doing. So I know when I realized the difference between staying in space and staying in place, I was able to start watching other people. And then, of course, either recording or training in front of a mirror and watching myself to see what joints were and weren't moving. Now, in Chen style, there's another way of thinking called the three joints theory. And the three joints basically mean that if you have three joints in a line, only the joint in the middle will flex. Okay? So for instance, when I'm doing lazy about tying coat, this is the only joint that's actually doing any flexation. While the shoulder doesn't lift, doesn't move, it stays in place. And the wrist also stays in place. Okay? So while I do my turning of dantian, everything appears to be in motion, but if I try to make it as obvious as possible that I'm not doing much of anything, then you can see that the third joint, the joint in the center, is just collapsing and opening. Collapsing is kind of a bad word. It's compressing. But again, what do you see people normally practice with this? Joints all moving. Now, high-level guys, you'll look at them and it's very hard to discern if they're moving or not moving. And a lot of really high-level guys, like Feng Zhicheng, for instance, before he passed away, you watch him and it looks like he's actually just moving his arms around, but he's so incredibly powerful. It just means that their skill level has gotten to a point where the illusion is really, really strong. The thrust here is to pay attention to each and every move and not like, don't do the entire form. Take the first 2 or 3 moves out of the set. Take your wild horse, take needle at sea bottom's another good one, right? Out of the yang style. So if I'm doing needle at sea bottom, when I turn, you can see my joints aren't actually doing anything. This little circle is actually my legs rising and falling and my waist moving back and forth. So while I'm doing my needle at sea bottom, my arms aren't doing anything. Okay, there's a fold, etc., etc. But my arms are doing sweet nothing throughout the movement. I'm not rolling and trying to make it look really pretty. Pretty doesn't matter. Efficiency matters. We're not doing our Tai Chi for other people to observe it. We're doing it to change how we integrate with our bodies. And that's the big trick, right? Your mind integrating with your flesh. However it is that you normally move in your everyday life is likely incorrect in Tai Chi. And I can say that because if it wasn't true, why would we train? Why would there be a system of training to change the way we move? So hopefully that makes some sense. So you should be able to take any of the things you practice and just study each joint. Take your time. That's why Tai Chi is slow. Which joint is moving? Which joint is not moving? Am I staying in space? So like as I start Buddha's Warrior Attendant, my left hand stays in space. My right hand stays in place. I close my fist. My whole body picks up. I don't lift my arm. This is my leg doing this work. It's very easy to miss these. And it's one of the things that I think really helped me when I was getting started in Tai Chi the first few years. And it made a huge difference in what I can see in my own mistakes. That's why I think it's so important.
my name is John Kovarovic. I'm an instructor at a YMCA at the Westside Ranch here in San Antonio, Texas. So today we're going to be discussing a little bit about Pong and how it works with the other 7 energies in Tai Chi Pong. So I've been training about 13 years. The philosophy that I like to use with Tai Chi is it's mostly principle based. The principles go into more of the combat side of Tai Chi. We also do focus on Qigong, the health aspects, and also the Wu De, the morality behind Tai Chi. Today, what I'm going to go ahead and do is do a little demonstration with Dave Randel assisting me, showing a little bit of what Pong energy is and why it's important with the other 7 energies. So, Dave, if you don't mind. Alright, so my Tai Chi, when I first started out, Pong was kind of a secret. There are no secrets in Tai Chi. This is something that's very basic. Everyone should know Pong energy. So with Pong, I'm going to show basically what it is with Tai Chi, the basic instruction. So if you could stand with your feet shoulder width apart, your head held as if suspended by a string from above. Relax your neck. Slightly tuck your chin, so that way if you get chin checked, you don't get knocked out. And we're going to round the back, concave the chest a little bit. Relax your shoulders. Now your arms should be about a fist width between them, so there's a space there. Okay, you're going to sink your ribs slightly. 4 finger spaces below your dantian, or below your belly button is your dantian. You're going to sink that straight down and let your knees bend naturally, slightly. And you're going to, a lot of people have a habit of leaning either forward or back with their upper back. We don't want to do that. Now your hips, you're going to slightly push them forward and up, which is going to make the natural curve of your back go away. Now we have a nice straight back. There's a line here from your byway, which is the top of your head, to your Huoyin. Your feet are parallel and stable. You should feel like your feet are heavy and your upper body is light, correct?
Yeah, I'm holding some of it up top, but yeah.
Perfect. So now there's 3 circles. There's your upper body circle, which is open and you're pushing out in both directions. Your lower body, your qua is rounded. Your qua is this area right here. You're in guineal crease is how you say it in scientific terms, I guess. And your knees are supporting your body. They're slightly bent. They're slightly out because it's pushing out here from your qua, and your feet are supporting your full body weight. Now with Pong, so if we're discussing the opening movement of Tai Chi, if you could, I'm going to go ahead and stand here. If you could just grab my wrist and give me a little bit of pressure going towards me. So when you first open in Tai Chi, you get that Pong by rounding your chest. Now with just that slight movement, you see how it's displacing its feet. So at that point, if I raise my hands, it's going to push them out. So that is basically Pong energy right there. It's opening and pushing out. Now, Pong can be expanding or contracting, so at the same time, if he's grabbing, go ahead and give me a little bit of pressure and grab. It can also be in, contracting, and then expanding. So the idea of Pong is just that. Contracting, expanding, and pushing out. Now, that same energy has to be in everything. So if we go into roll back, you still have to have your Pong. So if I'm here and I'm close to my body, I'm fighting with him. There's no point in me doing that. So if I keep him out, he can't come in with his elbow. I have control of his body here, and it's just a slight movement for Pong. So the Pong is still there. I still have my roundness. I still have my shape, and I can pull him off balance. I can expand and I can contract. So roll back is basically leading him into nothingness. If he's giving me any type of force, it's just a small movement, and it's leading him into his own force. So if he's coming forward, just slightly touch him, lead him into his own force. Next one would be press. So with press, it's the same idea with Pong. I'm expanding out. Now just anything where your arms are going opposite is press. It can even be strikes. So there's a lot of ideas behind press. Push. A lot of people have a habit of shoving in Tai Chi. You don't want to shove, especially not in push hands. So push is just right here. Sink into the center, and you can displace their energy. It's the same idea with Pong. Keep the roundness, sink in. Everything should go at the same time. Doesn't take a lot of force. Just sink down and towards their center. Split, same thing. So if I'm going to split, here's a split. I still have the round shape. Here. Anytime split's going the opposite direction, it's a split. So next is bump. Bump can be done with any part of the body. So shoulder. We're done with the knees. We're done with the shoulder. Any part of the body can use bump. Last one is pluck or pull down. This is where elbow sideways. So we're here. Pluck. Sink. Still keep that round shape. And you pull them through. So pluck. Here. So pluck is going to feel almost like you're sitting on a beach ball and you get displaced. It's a forceful energy, and it's to pull them out of their center. Last one, of course, is elbow. Elbow still has Pong. The round shape, you're going to come into their center. Same exact idea. Elbow can here, anywhere where your elbow energy is used.
My name is Steve Carrier, and I'm here to talk about martial arts. And I have a disability, but for me, martial arts has done great things. When I started martial arts, I told my instructor that I was wanting to learn self-defense, but it became far greater than that. He told me that that was not true, and I laughed. And he said, what you really want is far more than self-defense. And boy, was he correct. The martial arts became far more than learning self-defense. It became a very personal thing to me, and it has helped me with my health and my mental strength, my emotional strength. But what was really interesting was he became a mentor, and the things that I learned through the martial arts was a lot of things that my mentors in the past had already taught me. And I just needed affirmation from a different source. And now that he has passed away, it has continued to help me learn the things that that I've already learned, but I have continued to grow and learn new things, physically, mentally, emotionally, and for my spirit fortitude. And I enjoy doing it for me, not for someone else. And I would hope that you, if you haven't started in martial arts, whether Tai Chi or Qigong or Kung Fu or some other form, give it a shot, because it will greatly enhance your life. And I could say, I could go on for hours and talk about what it has done for me in many areas. But in a nutshell, that's what a good start. Thank you.
And now, a listing of some upcoming workshops within the Tai Chi Connection community. issue of Tai Chi Connection Video Magazine. Until next time, stay trained up.